Okay, so maybe just a few words. I'm going to recap a bit on what you've heard here so far from Shmuel. So basically, as soon as the humanitarian crisis began in Northern Ethiopia, we came together, these three organizations, together with social activists from Israel, with the goal of providing humanitarian aid, pure aid, no political agendas, just people in need. We don't care where they're from, what their ethnicity is. None of that matters. We've been operating all over the country, as you heard earlier from Nissan. We have no preference to any area, and that's really where our humanitarian mandate stems from. So that's just a very important thing. We go wherever there's need, and there's definitely need in Northern Tigray. So just a snapshot, you've heard some of these things from Shmuel, but we are facing a very, very severe humanitarian crisis right now. We have over 1 million people displaced, over 4 million people in dire need of aid right now, starvation, not mildly uncomfortable conditions, but true danger to their lives. And we've seen massive destruction of basic infrastructure. I mentioned the main ones, water, electricity, and medical institutions, but as Shmuel said, no banks, no transportation. Every part of life has been turned upside down for these people. And these may be the most impactful, but they're definitely not the only ones. So we started conducting needs assessments on the ground, and we've come up with this very wide range of needs list. So we have a problem with safe drinking water. People are drinking out of rivers, polluted rivers. Nissan mentioned how this is very detrimental to their health. And of course, insufficient in quantity. Food shortage, very severe food shortage in the area. Lack of basic hygiene equipment. A lot of these people just fled their homes. They left with nothing. They don't have anything but the clothes, and that's even not all of them even have that. Medical supplies for facilities. There've been a lot of injuries in this as a result of this violent conflict, and a lot of the hospitals and health centers are very overwhelmed, and they can't just, it's both personnel shortage, but also they're running out of the basic medical supplies to treat, wounds of shots or of knives, which are very typical right now to this conflict, and psychosocial support. So you can imagine what some people must have seen and experienced, and we've identified a very great need, a lot of traumatized people that have witnessed horrible things. So these are kind of the urgent needs, or let's say, the basic needs that we've identified so far on the ground. And I wanted to mention that this area was already not doing that well even before the conflict. Water shortage is extremely severe in this area. The topography is very challenging. It's hard to put, hand dug wells. It's a very challenging area and very arid area to begin with, even before all their water supply was cut off. So, and the same goes for food. It's related, but there are very high rates of malnutrition, especially under 5 years of age. So this area was not doing well before, and you can imagine how much worse everything must be when you lose the little that you had. So this is a kind of a crowded slide, sorry for that, but it's actually a good thing because it shows all the things we've managed to do so far. So as part of the coalition, we've mobilized some funds from the Israeli social activists led by the Ethiopian diaspora. And we focused on three main things initially. So the first thing is water distribution. We hired a water truck, and it just goes around the neighborhoods. We've prioritized different areas. And we've already managed to distribute over 240,000 gallons of water. And a few days ago, we passed the 10,000 family mark, which is really satisfying because, with one water truck, we've done this. So imagine what we could do if we could hire more water trucks, if we could afford that. So this is just one water truck for about 2.5 weeks. For food distribution, what we're doing is we're working with local factories because there are a lot of problems with getting materials into the region right now. So everything we're doing, we're purchasing locally. That's also allowing us to act, on the technical logistic front, but also helping us to support the local economy and trying to get them back into business. So, so far we've prioritized people with chronic illness and the elderly to receive family food packages, and we've distributed 200 of them so far. And they comprise of flour, rice, and oil at this point, which are the basic things that are easy to get, relatively easy. So personal items and amenities. Again, these people are currently staying in temporary shelters and what we call IDP centers, which is internally displaced people centers. And we've distributed a lot of basic hygiene items, and we're also very COVID aware because the area has also had COVID, fairly high COVID rates before this whole thing started. And you can just imagine, living in crowded spaces with no water. It's everything that we don't want for COVID, for fighting COVID. So we're trying to be COVID aware, and we're handing out hand sanitizers and masks, and other things like blankets, other items that people have, because these centers are actually converted schools. They weren't in any way prepared to receive people. So people are just lying on the floor, sleeping on the floor. We're trying to do our best with the funds that we have. Here are just a few pictures. So this is our water truck, our food distribution, and our material distribution. So just to give you some idea of what it looks like, and a few more. This is one water tanker that we purchased for one of the centers for the refugees that didn't have any place to collect the water that we're offering them through our water truck. Yeah, and food distribution for the elderly, which is our recent distribution, which you can see on the right. So our next phase, we're constantly reevaluating the needs. What was right for 2 weeks ago might not be right anymore. What we're hoping to do is to expand our activities. We're still going to do the material distribution that I've described as long as our funding continues. But what we would like to achieve is, one, get a wider geographic reach. One of the problems that we're currently working in the capital city, because that's one of the only places we can access. Fighting is still ongoing in some areas. The roads are not secure. So we're a bit constrained in where we can reach. But we do know that the farther areas have had very intense fighting and a lot of need. So we're definitely hoping to expand as the roads start becoming safer, and as we get, permission to travel. We want to get to the places that were hit the hardest. WASH program. So WASH is short for water, hygiene, sanitation. So beyond the water distribution, we also want to do things that are a bit more long-term. So if there's infrastructure that's been destroyed, we have the means and tools to rehabilitate it and to get people back to being connected to water pipes where it's possible, or even in far rural areas where they depend on hand pumps. So we can help fix these hand pumps that are often the only source of water that people have in, tens of miles. So we're planning on doing that. And also maybe treating some water sources that we know if people are currently drinking from the river, and we know that the prospect of getting water pipes is low, then we might want to treat that river so that at least we can make sure that they're taking in water that is not going to be so harmful to them. And the last part is psychosocial support. So with our partner, one of the coalition partners, IsraAID, we have expertise on this field, and we're planning on training local professionals to provide some trauma relief activities. As always, in these humanitarian situations, women and children are the most vulnerable, and they're definitely our biggest focus at this point. We want to create safe spaces for them. Shmuel described some of the terrible things that have been happening, and yeah, so in all this, we'll be working locally with partners on the ground. They know the context much better. We don't think that we know the area well enough, to come in as foreigners. So we always work through local forces. Yeah, so these are the main kind of next steps that we're planning on doing. And of course, as I said, we will continue the distribution. So now to the last part, before the question section, I think, how can you help? So we've done all of this so far with around $13,000. The money goes very far in Ethiopia. It's not good for the local economy, but it is an advantage only in this type of situation. The dollars go a very long way. Just to give you an idea, a $50 donation is the cost of our water truck for one day. And we can reach 400 families at least, sometimes even more. And yeah, so that can fund a full day. And it is also enough to fund 3 monthly food packages with just $50, which we'll be happy to distribute on your behalf. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'll be happy to answer questions in the next section. Yeah, and please share this with anyone you think would be able to help, because the needs are still so massive. We don't even know the tip of it yet. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.